And we're all.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello. Can you guys hear me okay? Thank you so much for your patience. I know we're a little behind. Thank you for everyone joining us in person and online. All right. So, yeah, thank you for our meeting today. We're going to be talking about. Yeah, sorry, there's an echo. We're going to be talking about. Different tips and strategies on how we can identify native versus non-native species while we're out in the field, and kind of just going over different strategies we can use when we're doing things in the fall and spring. Of course, so we're going to start off with some introductions.
I'm sure we all pretty much know each other, but just in case, we're just gonna introduce ourselves and just name your favorite native species that you like to work with and your least favorite invasive species that you've worked with. So I will start. I'm Anastasia, the volunteer coordinator. My favorite native species is a carpet creeper. I just think they're so beautiful. I love the flowers and I love that it is an aggressive native species. And my least favorite to work with, I would have to say, like the multiflower rose. I mean, it's got pretty flowers, but you know, sometimes I just get pricked and poked out in the field, especially if there's so much and it's so tall. So that's my least favorite.
I'm Gloria. I think my favorite are all the sumac species as native and invasive. Right now, it's kudzu. It's Lisa's favorite. Lisa's favorite. Lisa's favorite. Appreciate Greenberg. And I think my favorite native, I did not pick one. Let me go back to that one. And I would say wisteria right now. I think it's wisteria boursemberry kind of. But wisteria, its roots are so aggressive. It just takes so long to kill it. And then again, boursemberry always keeps coming back. I think those are my least favorite invasives. And then my favorite native, maybe something like Venus flower. I just love how it just this pretty little blue. It's here love it.
I'm Susan Loudy. I work at Floral. I was going to say winged sumac was my favorite, but then I started thinking about wildflowers, and I love the name of this flower. Have you ever seen clasping Venus's hand here? Looking at this. Did I see that? Looking glass. Clasping Venus's looking glass, and my least favorite is Mile of Minute, which is earning its name this year.
I'm Melinda Soltis. I'm a site leader for, I think, the westernmost Pleasant Hill part. And my most favorite right now this season is IMA, and I just really love the purple. It looks really good against whatever else is blooming. And then my least favorite has got to be multiflora rose, just because my volunteers don't want to deal with it.
I'm Whitney Redding. I do watershed work. So I take a watershed approach, which means the stream, valley, and parks up and down Holmes Run and Cameron Run watershed. So mostly what I use my IMA for is tree rescuing and training other people to do tree rescuing, taking a watershed approach. So my least favorite, we are being overrun by kudzu and boursemberry right now, especially lower Holmes Run. And in your backyard, I promise. But the favorites, any tree that's actually native and still standing and managed to, outlive the deer browse. That's my favorite tree.
I'm Bev Horton, and my area is Southwest Street Valley Park, Burke Lake, South Run Park. Between those two. And I think my most favorite, just because I'm seeing some runs of it now, are all the solidagos and the little white asters. They're all a big challenge because which one is this, which one is that? And everybody just gives up on the little white one. But I think the Oriental bittersweet drives me crazy because we can cut it gets up there on 30 feet when season, although it doesn't seem to seeds that season. So at least that's something.
Yes, my name is Willow. I'm leader. And the favorites, native plants is flower. And my least favorite is definitely olive.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I work at Bathwood Park. And my favorite native is Joe Biden. And I hate all of it. So I can't at least favorite because it's tough for me to do. But I will say it's invasive. There is so much poison on the Bathwood Park. Probably more than porcelain berry rose. There's so much. I can't work there from when it starts until it dies. Over, poison,
Hi, I'm John Wilson. I'm the co-lead with Heidi Allen and Fred Crabtree. They're Rustum. And I was a National Park Service weed warrior since 2006. My favorite natives are sycamores, the tree, and milkweed as a plant. And I would get on the multiflora rose hating, but the barberry is actually a little worse, I think, because it actually penetrates the gloves and breaks off. I can show you something. That's
Okay, I work with Heidi Allen at Deerling Park. Least favorite right now, thyme, rose and horseberry. And my favorite, I think, is strawberry bush, simply because it is so persistent in the face of deer browse. I mean, the deer come to it, and then you walk through the woods, and there you see it coming up, trying again. So that's my favorite right now. It'll change.
I am Dorothy Keough. I'm for Fall Springs, Green Valley Park, which is down by Mountain area. And it's hard to pick a favorite beach. I'm going for the trees. I'm so happy that we can save the old oil because there's so few of them. And some of the other smaller trees like Fox Island and some of those things that are area like it. And I despise multiflora roses. It makes it so hard for people to work. That's just so bad. And then porcelain berry, it's so optimistic. As soon as we get something cleaned up, the porcelain berry just makes bad. So two of them.
Hi, Tucker Newberry, co-leader at the typical Red Stream Valley Park in Oakton. And my least favorite invasive species is the white-tailed deer. Maybe Henry native, maybe a spice bush because they're resistant to.
I'm Margaret Fisher. I work at Chapel Road Park in Clifton. My favorite native these days is wild bleeding heart because it's such an amazing container plant in the shade, and it blooms from April to November. Fantastic. And my least these days is wisteria because I'm watching it snap the tops off the trees.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I had trouble with favorite.
Oh, yeah, well,
Me too.
in the basement now. Oh, that's right, I forgot that.
I
mean,
Or rugs. Do
What?
you have wooden floors?
Yeah.
Both.
Because if, I can be in a room with a floor that doesn't.
Good idea.
The dogs are in the basement right now with the
Yeah,
kids.
they're deep in the Green Valley.
Mm.
They live, I love them all. I keep them like the crawl and simple. And I don't like to chat stuff because it just never seems to get away. Terrible. So here's the Providence Female Park. Favorite, I have a lot of favorites. Probably something more freedom with the rich golf. And my least favorite and the one that feels the least competing is telegraphs. I feel like people not stop ever. My whole yard is covered. That's a community.
My name is Nick Newberry. I live in Oakmont Street Park and we live in a park. I gave out my words at Oakmont today. With my rec center area. My favorite, I really have a soft spot for the viburnum bushes, to go with black viburnum. And the least favorite, I think it's got to be stiltgrass or the inside speed work that we have. Our site, like, playing this game, but can be eradicated, can be not, it's real fuel concept.
Suzanne, already worked at the first. My least favorite is
that of course I'm very it's possible. And my favorites, I think Berkeley is definitely one in my work I learned this. And I agree with it.
And my favorite is probably Blue Miss Prom or Spring. And my favorite is
We did have someone in the chat, also introduce themselves. It is Mr. Greg Sykes. He is a co-site leader at Royal Lake Park. His, favorite native would be the northern high bush blueberry. Like nice berry. And then most hated invasive would be porcelain. So looks like Mother Rose and porcelainberry up there at the top. Okay, so these are just going to be some of the things we're going to be talking about today. First, we're just going to go over some reminders about the program and any updates we have. We're also going to be talking about different planting methods, best practices. We're also going to go over non-native and non-native plant identification, tools and resources you can use, understanding different types of plant shapes and how that can help you identify what you're looking at, seasonal timing, when and how to prepare your site if you are going to be doing any plantings, and then any challenges with any projects that you may be working on in the upcoming season or even in spring, and kind of how we can work through these different challenges. Just to remind everyone, we work for IMA because we are passionate about, conservation and restoration and killing all those invasive species that we just hate so much. Of course, we want to protect the native plants, wildlife, and our natural areas from these invasive species. It's also important to educate the public about the impacts of these non-native invasive plants are having in our ecosystems. We're always trying to engage the community through different outreach activities and programs and things like that. And hoping to, get more volunteers out in the park to help, with the work that we do. Of course, we want to create and restore these healthy habitats. We want to keep our forests, meadows, parks, and things like that healthy, or get them healthier to the point where we're happy and we're all just thriving together. That's the goal. We just want to have a nice product that we all enjoy for us and. Of course, we're going to acknowledge, our partners. I just want to recognize the Saga for their excellent help that they've done. They've done multiple donations of native species that we put into the parks. Of course, they've also supported us in the natural resources grants and our other, sister programs at Park Authority. We want to thank other county staff. I want to thank, my teammates, my colleagues here. For, helping me, Park Authority. I'm still pretty new, so I want to thank them, of course, my other colleagues at Park Authority. And of course, we do want to thank you guys because you guys are the bread and butter of our program. You guys are out in the field doing all of the work, all of the hard work to, protect and use these natural areas that we just hope you're doing with us. So thank you guys. You guys are really the backbone and we really appreciate all the work that's too. So gonna give a hand of applause. It is. Okay, we actually did have a guest speaker, Margaret, did want to talk about, the Fairfax Prism. So we did just want to give her a couple minutes to speak about.
Okay, well, 2/3 of you already know about this, so apologies for the repetition. But we have started this new organization that's basically made up of us and other interested people called Fairfax Tree Rescuers Prism, Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management. And we are hoping that everyone here will sign up to help in one way or another. So just to give you some idea of what we have in mind. First of all, one of our goals is to reach the entire public How do you reach the entire public with this? You do it one neighborhood at a time. So what we would like to do is have a representative in every neighborhood in the county who can relay information from the PRISM to their neighbors. If you're in a homeowners association, that's easy because you already have communication methods. If you're not, then you have a little more work figuring that out. But so think to yourself, is there someone else in my community who would do this? And if the answer is no way, then it's really on you if you want your neighbors to know about it. So please sign up for that. We have committed to Fairfax County Park Authority to survey all the parks along the trails for the most severe invasive infestations. So it'd be great if you could pick a couple of parks, like Rock Park, for instance, and other parks around, and figure on taking a walk through them over the next few months to just make it, use a little app we have, and it's really pretty easy, just to mark where those species are. So we can have a good look at what the problem is. So we're starting with Fairfax County Park Authority property, but we want to do all the other parks as well. And then there's a whole lot of other things that you all could do if you wanted to. And one of them is to do site visits to the communities and to commercial properties to advise people on how to take care of their own land. Another is to do tree rescue training sessions. There's all sorts of kind of administrative tasks, if you like, sitting home on your computer or making phone calls. You need to do that. In fact, that actually is probably the limiting factor in this campaign, is people who are willing to do that kind of work to basically organize the volunteers and get volunteers in. You're welcome to come to our steering committee. We need people who can give presentations to groups. And last but not least, we are doing an official launch of Fairfax Tree Rescue PRISM in our week of action, November 8th through 16th. And the hope is that we will have tree rescue events in every magisterial district in the county, as well as every city, so Vienna, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are planning any kind of events around that time, please let me know and we'll just put it on the list. But think also specifically, if possible, about tree rescue events as opposed to pulling up, silk grass, like we were doing that in November. Something that's specifically related to trees, because that's what interests the public and it's fun. So, and you don't, of course, have to necessarily limit yourself to your own park. There are other options. So if you can do any of these things, please put your name, your park, and your email address on this form. Here.
Thank you. Just a few reminders, just if you are working throughout the fall, and if you get into a winter some people store, if you're going to continue to work throughout the rest of the season, just remember to report your hours. If you're not going to work, no big deal. Just make sure you return your tools. That way, if people do want to host crews or things like that, they're available for those people who choose to work. Also, don't forget, if you are still going out into the park, even though it is going to start getting a little cooler, some of these things still linger around. Just make sure that you're checking for poison ivy. Ticks, some ticks are still active right now, so just make sure to check yourself, try to volunteer so you can tick tracks, things like that. You are working with volunteers. Some people never work with tools, just make sure you're doing the tool safety. Introduction, how to use tool safety, especially for different people or even people never touch the blockers, things like that. You always want to be safe. To continue, some people don't know, but hours that you report aren't just exclusive to actually being on the field. You are allowed to report your hours for things like prepping. Some people, to get outreach activity stuff for groups, picking up tools also count 4 hours. So you're doing things like that. Anything that pertains to preparing for a birthday, cleaning up your birthday, things like that, you can also record that as your own different hours. If you have questions, if you're not sure of what you're doing, you can just ask us. It's easy to know you're about to do that. So a few updates to the program. We have implemented a new tier system within IMA. So what that is, basically, we've designed it where there's gonna be different levels that people can grow through the program. And we basically did that to allow site leaders to contribute and grow throughout the program, giving them different things and resources to kind of support one another for you guys. And, we hope this will have continued engagement. Okay, so what do I mean by tiers? So you guys are all site leaders, so you wouldn't necessarily go down to tree rescue, but this is kind of what we need. So we started the tree rescue as tier 1. So if you know somebody or you have a volunteer interested in continuing the momentum of being out in the park, and they would like to adopt a site. Now for the IMA program, they have to start out as a tree rescuer. We just want to make sure that they're starting their base knowledge and kind of working their way up. If they love it and they love it to continue, then they can go on to it. So a tree rescuer, they're tier 1, and basically they're allowed to go to different sites and manage trees from invasive vines. And they basically train under tier 3 or tier 4 for IMA staff. This doesn't need a background check, you just have to sign up, get the training, and then you're pretty much good to go. Compliance. Tier 2, this would be I'm a volunteer or a steward, and basically after you've been a tree rescuer for a specific amount of time, you then have the ability to become, your own steward for that site, you're allowed to work independently. You can work independently where you can have team up with another tier 2 steward or even just a rescue person. The tier 2 is different because they still don't need a background check, so you're able to do groups, volunteer events, things like that. So tier 3 cycling. This is basically what you guys are now, is a tier 3. The only difference between a tier 2 and a tier 3 is basically the background. So tier 3, which are you guys, site leaders, so you guys have the ability to work with volunteer groups, support the groups, scout projects, things like that. If you like, you don't have to, it's not required. But you do have that ability to work with those types of groups. So basically nothing changed, but for you guys, the only difference would be if you did want to do more with me, we offered a tier 4, which would be a trainer or like supervisor for other animal volunteers. So I'm a trainer who essentially help with onboarding new volunteers. So it would be helping out someone become a tree rescuer or helping a tree rescuer when you pop if they would like to work with groups, they would go to a tier 3, just get the background check. If they weren't interested in working with the public in that manner, they can have the option to go to tier 2 and just only a background check. So that's what a tier 4 public, I just to work other volunteers in that manner. They also can help with identification. If you get any part like, hey, I was working in the park, I'm just having a little trouble identifying certain plants, could you help me? That's the tier 4.
So is that kind of like a mentor master?
Exactly.
So the idea is we have a lot of people on the wait list. So we have volunteers training new volunteers that allow us to bring more people on board, right? Get them, if they're low, so that's why we're also, created this for 1 tier 2, because we also want to ensure these people are committed.
Yeah.
Right, that this is a long-term dedicated person to the right site or in sites. Yeah. And so if there's site leaders, you already know that you're training the tree rescuers are already doing it. So then And we would add you to the tier 4 category. Here's our list of IMA site leader tier 4 categories, and we would reach out to you. Hey, could you help with these new tree rescuers who want to move on? Or two. And that's the thing. Hold on, I have to, yes,
Quick question. If you have somebody that's been working with you just as a rescuer now, and somebody that's coming to every event, and they want to move up and they're going to be a friend and wanted to become an unlead co-lead with me, where would they be in this process right now?
So they would have to start off as a tree rescuer first, and then after, oh, like 6 months to a year, they're consistently like working, every week. Some people are up there every day. If they've shown that commitment and they're ready to move to the next step, then they would be able to. So they just.
I think a couple people that have been doing it for 2 solid years already, so they have to they go back to zero and the year into it before they burn up.
Kind of, yeah. It's like title wise, like they're still able to like go out to birthdays and help you like that. It would just be.
I'm guessing though that you mean that they haven't yet gone through the training. Like I have a lot of regulars who come and have gone through the training, but they're also in it for the social. So they come to the trainings over and over, partly because it's tricky, different seasons, partly because they like doing it with somebody as opposed to alone in the woods. And so in that case, I would advocate that if they already have gone through the training and this opportunity is open up, that be counted toward that year. This, in that case, you're not going to be waiting forever, and they have more training than the average person who would start today and go for a year.
Yeah, but I just need to know that if they're trained, they've gone through the time.
Call it parole.
I'm gonna fix the mic. They're having trouble hearing on mine, so I'm gonna see.
You have a trainer, I'm training, or are you talking about?
So when I do trainings, I will work in a park usually. Like if it's a big group, it's like process of getting their, they went through.
They couldn't hear me.
The tree rescue, not the IMA training. Right, because so what this is replacing what had been the bottleneck, it sounds like. So in the past, you kind of not a leader, you kind of been on waiting lists. Now we're like, well, we can get started experience with this right. And IMA leaders who have been active for quite a while, they can certainly take on the course of training. Okay.
Can you share kind of what the backlog is? Because, for example, I was in the Fairfax Master Naturalist class this past spring.
Yeah.
And there were a ton of people that wanted to get involved, and, I heard about all these folks who kind of they go to the back of the line. Do you have a sense for how you want to move people through, and if there's a backlog and things like that?
So just, I haven't been doing this for like 10 years, being a coordinator, but just from, this past year trying to get more site leaders, a lot of people seem eager up front. But then when it comes time to like get in the park and do the background check and do all these things, then they're kind of hesitant. So I think the idea with kind of starting them out as a tree rescuer kind of, I don't want to say like weeds them out, but we do want dedicated people. If you only want to work at one park like one day a year, it's like, it may not be as effective as someone who is really committed and is out there every week. So kind of having them be a tree rescuer first, just helps us, like it helps them show us and us like help them like with their commitment. Because I have tree rescuers now, like, some of you guys were even tree rescue for a while. And since you've been doing that for so long, and once you became a site leader, like, some people are out there every day. like actually doing a lot of hard work. So, you know, when I think people just want to go straight to site leader, you know, it's more of like a title thing versus like, I actually want to work in the park. At least that's what I've seen when I've talked to people.
This is an apprenticeship program. It's awesome. Because it, you know, it moves people off the waiting list if they can't get gratification. And so the idea of someone can come over and over as many times as they want to, like what I do for training. I'm sure there are IMA sites, regular IMA sites where people come over and over and they may not have thought about it yet, but now this opportunity is open. They can continue to do that as long as they want.
Yeah.
But it can be counted towards something. But
Yeah.
it's an apprenticeship toward
Exactly.
becoming your own site leader.
Exactly.
They have the benefit of working with a master IMA trainer
Exactly.
on a regular basis. And maybe like in my case, people come to me and I rotate from park to park, but I would put their park on my rotation. Or in the case of an IMA, traditional IMA leader, I can see how they come to you, work in your park. That's a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would also start to make inroads on, you know, giving them some time in their park,
Mm-hmm.
even with them.
Yeah.
You know, they can do it, it sounds like as an entrepreneurial, you know, enterprising volunteer. You can also kind of reinforce with that. Oh, here's what I see in your park. Here's what I would do if I were you.
Yeah.
And give them a little give and take. They're giving you a lot of labor, then you could give them some of that, you know, labor and tutelage so that then they can continue to be engaged. Because I swear with the tree rescuers, a lot of it is people get out there, think they know what they're gonna do based on what they've been trained in, but then they get over.
Yeah.
So this would help address that.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I too am hearing there's not enough acknowledgement of work put in. If you're concerned about commitment and you have individuals who show up at all these places time after time, I think that's your credit that should advance them ahead. And if you have a list of the sites that need a leader, have people indicate an interest and try to see if they can then quickly adapt to being on their own a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then maybe not. But when I heard you say, well, they would have to start back at the beginning, that's not going to appeal to anybody.
It's more so like it's like a title. They're not necessarily well, yes, kind of, but not entirely. I mean, even we're tree rescuers are just gonna have a little more so we're gonna like implement like herbicide with tree rescuers at some point. So like even in that aspect, like it still makes an impact. Like vines are still killing trees, unfortunately. It's still important work. You know, I don't think it should be, you know, entirely put to the side. But yeah, people are going, you know, all the time. Yeah, sorry.
And it doesn't mean that because they administratively, they're listed as a tree rescuer because they have to go through hard sort of getting paperwork done, getting all the things done. It doesn't mean that they can't be still like a co-leader with you because that's what they've been doing and that's how they feel comfortable all the time. It's more like on the back end for us to know, us as staff, having them going through the process. You know, if you can, maybe we can do something like we receive a reference letter. You know, we're all figuring this out, right? We have our Montgomery County staff and we learned how their weed warrior program works, and that's where we were basing a lot of this off because we were trying to figure out how we can get more people on. And so I think we're really open to this input that you guys are giving us on how we can make this flow. You know, obviously because we depend on you to be then our tier 4 volunteers to help bring these people up. And so I do think maybe we could receive like a reference letter from a site leader saying, hey, this person's been working with me. I feel very confident in their understanding. Can you know, put them as a tier 2, which would be the IMA volunteer, so that they can have a site if that's what they really want, or, you know, continue building sites.
I like that. I think one, you can have it concurrent in the sense that if someone's been a long time tree rescuer, they're gonna need to start with the IMA, you know, maybe ask for a certain amount of their time to be spent on IMA versus just tree rescuing if they get to that second tier. So like if someone's worked with me for a long time, they're a tree rescuer. All along the way, we're talking about all the other things that we're looking at. And, you know, they're not quite ready to go to tier 2. But that can be sort of counting toward it, so if that makes sense. So there can be a little bit of like, if you're at a traditional IMA site and your volunteers are not working on trees very often, or mostly working on something else, like a meadow, then they are already far enough along on the tier 2 that should count toward it. They still need to get the tree rescue training.
So in the
Yeah.
year 2, we've limited the plants. Did you do that? That's what we.
It's pretty much the standard.
Row layer.
Yeah. Pretty much, it's pretty much everything you guys are already working on. It's just no background check, so they can't do like public events. Yeah.
Explain to volunteers, this is how you can progress, even if it's just short couple bullets on each and a link to the site.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a lot to kind of explain to somebody in a training session.
Yeah.
Well, is there a limit on site? I thought the problem, part of the bottleneck is a limit on how many sites there could be. Is that not the case anymore? I'm a site. I'm a site.
About the bottom
So-
was training, you guys getting them trained.
Yeah.
That's bringing in that's here for.
Yeah.
So it's more of the training than it is the actual, there isn't like a hard number on each one we have.
There isn't a hard number.
No.
There isn't a hard number for like number of sites.
How many IMA sites and people are there?
I think it's like 65 site leaders and a number or two above or below that per site. I think it's like 63 sites because there are so many like multiple site leaders at one site.
When I took the training, I remember 1 hour of online,
Yeah.
and then you all watched with me, which I assume you can figure out how to do. But I mean, that seems like not a lot of training. I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm still summer people. If you know 3 plants, you can work stuff with that, and not, touch other things you don't know. So I'm trying to figure out where the complexity is.
So, I
In
mean,
this case, this is helping.
yeah.
Is that this replaces a one and done type of session. You still probably have to do that hour, whatever it is, you still probably have to walk through at some point. But it allows for that person to have a longer on-ramp, more support throughout it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even,
okay, but in terms of your all's backlog, is
Yeah.
it, I know you're not very many people, but at the same time, you have people right now you can't train. That's what I'm trying to understand. Right now, if us here said we're gonna take some people, how many people are there?
On the list.
Yeah,
quite a few.
Yeah, it's a decent. The idea is that like once we get some of the site leaders that are interested in becoming the tier 4 to help us train them, you can pick as many people as you're comfortable with working on. And then also doing, like, part of that would be doing repeat, like, site visits, like helping answer questions for them if they need like more than, that one initial site visit.
But I think that would, so in the sense of like, yeah, you guys would be training. I think it is helpful for them to start, tree rescue, because there's only so many vining plants you can work with, right? It gets them that base like understanding of what you're looking at. And then, when you move up, you're learning more, you're doing more rather than just going straight for it, only knowing like 2 invasives, which is fine. I'm not, we all start somewhere. But being a tree rescuer, you already kind of have that, base understanding. And a lot of it just.
Deep dive can you do into that list, experience of the people on the list, with the information you have already? I've had some tree people who say they're trained tree rescuers.
Yeah.
And I get them, they don't know anything. Right.
Yeah.
And I know that there's people on that list who've been working in the parks for a long
Yeah.
time. They know a lot.
Mhm.
They could, is there any way to put some tiers in that list, people we could get off of this, so we can get them to work.
Yeah. So are you saying like get more experienced people off the list in working versus like,
Yes.
people who don't have like a
I mean, it was
base?
a session with them and maybe
Yeah.
versus that person who they're struggling to know what multiflora rose is.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if you can share like the spreadsheet of names. Like I'm in Mason District mostly, when we do our most work. So if I know the Mason District names, I can tell you through all the working I've been doing, whether I know that person happens to be a botanist or whatever it is, because some of the people got on that list because I recommended them.
Yeah.
So if I can look at that list, I can say, okay, I know these 3 people might be head of the list. They were the first ones you call.
Mhm.
And then just say, we've now got a new system, want to learn? And then, and I will take from anywhere in the county, if people come to our watershed, my parks, I'm absolutely fine with that. I don't mind doing the tree rescue training, and what I do is I try to get them to come back more than once, so that
Yeah.
they get exactly that problem of, not really knowing what they're doing. I can then be eyes and ears on. So
Yeah.
I like this. I really like this.
Thank you. Any more questions or ideas, concerns? Yeah.
Most people in this room is tier 3.
Yeah, pretty much everyone's tier 3. We do have some tier 4s here who did offer to do these things. If you are interested in training or kind of, helping out, tree rescuers and things like that, identification, mentorship, just let us know. And we can, find people or interested volunteers within your, your area. Sometimes I know it's kind of hard, when someone's on one side of the county and then, you're trying to help someone on the farther side of the county. So if you are interested in helping, just let us know. Because, we do want to get through the wait list. We do have a lot of people. We want the people to be excited and enthusiastic about conservation and restoration, right? It's just sometimes people think they're interested, and then it's hard work. It can be very disheartening when you go out there and then it grows back like instantly. You turn around and it's back, right? So that can really dissuade people. But we really do want to work through that wait list.
So excited. I've given a lot of thought to help in my regard. One of the things I've learned from doing straight training of pre-rescuing is that people are more likely to come back if there's something social about it, of course. They need to know, go more than once. But I think they're also like, some people are good at some things and some people are good at other things. And then we can be that eyes and ears that you can't, to kind of have like, if there is almost like a checklist of the kinds of things that we can think about while we're working with someone. Oh, this person needs to be able to do X. They don't have to know every plant. They just need to know what they don't know. They need to know, I don't know enough to do that, and that sometimes that's your first line of defense, is to know what not to do. So, I like the idea of having it fluid, where if there's and you guys are so busy, but if you have a way of, like us circumventing and having like just a listserv for just the people who are master trainers and saying, or like throw a question out there. I think one of the things that would be helpful is if you have like for the tier 4 and even to tier 3, people who are leading, if you have like a training session on just counteracting all of that negativity that comes out. One of the things that I feel like is my role is to give people to reshape their point of view from, oh my God, now that I see how many trees need to get done, I give up. To thinking, oh my God, look at all the good that one tree can do. And I literally, it's like, I feel like I'm a cheerleader. I'm out there telling people how each one of those trees does this amount of good. And if you're not going to do it, who is?
Yeah.
And even if we had all the best policies in the world and everyone was on the Paris Accord, it would still boil down to what people choose to do in their backyards and compliance issue.
Yeah.
So when they rephrase it that way, especially, it can be less overwhelming. And I think that when I've gone to IMA long in the past, when I went to IMA sites, I was kind of, okay, you're here, okay, can you grab it, which is great. But I think if we can have a train the trainer, if you will, just a one-off, where we can talk and share amongst ourselves. I'm sure other people have great strategies for just how to deal with that aspect of it, which is psychological, to be absolutely honest. But everyone is coming to my, it was almost like last year, whenever there was bad news, I get more people that particular weekend. I think people are looking for this. There's something local that they can do.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think if we work on that aspect of it, it's just peppering people with more information or reminding them of what good that plant does.
Yeah.
That plant It's not just, oh, you're great. Oh my God, there's terrorist over us, whatever. Go take her.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right?
I would just lobby too for a sense of priority,
Yeah.
training session for these people who are on that list too. Like I have a person who's been working as my co-lead. She's ready to go, or at least say, okay, now you Susan could certify her.
Yeah.
Let her use the chemicals and
Are you talking about Susan?
I had done.
I reached out to her. She told me no. Yeah. Yeah, I reached out to her earlier summer. She said no. So. So, I mean, I reached out to her. Yeah. So, yeah, I would love her help. I was like, yeah, like, are you ready? Like, we can get things going, like you vouched for her, we talked, privately, stuff like that. But it's like,
Something like, oh, I didn't want to do your year. or this or
maybe
that, and
May.
then maybe that's like.
early summer, May. So like, yeah, like she's committed. I see her at your park all the time, or like, the sign-in sheets. I know she's there weekly. She helps with like PVT and I tried to onboard her and she was like, yeah, she said no. So I mean, you can talk to her about that, but like, yeah, like some people. Yeah, so life happens. I'm not mad about it. We all are different places, in life. So, we want to keep people who are enthusiastic, and we're hoping, this will kind of weed people out. But like you guys said, like some people have been tree rescuing already for years and years and years. And, they do have the opportunity to adopt that site is, what we're trying to do. And they can still, do other stuff. So I like the word reference. If you want to give someone like a letter of reference, like, they're here every weekend or every month when I'm, out here doing a work day, I can vouch for them. They really know their stuff. And it's like, okay, like, we can obviously take that into consideration. But yes. Melinda first.
Yeah. Sorry, actually, I didn't even know that. I really don't understand a lot of things, but I'm like, for example, near me, we don't really have a vine problem.
Yeah.
It's mostly shrubs.
Yeah, honeysuckle.
I have this is my neighbor who wants to work in Hickory Forest.
Mhm.
And I love that, like, there's not really a tree rescue to get her started. So
Yeah.
how did she start?
Yeah, so if she's been like I said, like if you have someone who's been consistently going, is a new person.
Like, how do we get her? Like, oh, so there's no vines.
Yeah, you guys just have like honeysuckle. Yeah, there is a really bad.
Is that what?
No, tree rescue is just fine stuff.
You can do them simultaneously.
Mhm.
But that gives you the chance to site leader and obviously oversee both kinds of volunteers, right?
Yeah. I mean, I get the convenience aspect of, it's like in your backyard, it's in your neighborhood. I'm glad there's not a vine problem at your park. I've been to your park. But there are trees still.
Yeah.
Like,
She's not gonna do it. She's not
yeah.
gonna do it if she has to go, and she
Yeah.
could do it.
So-
She could go straight to the.
So, you have to weigh your options, no help at all versus a little bit of help and, slight inconvenience. So, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, just food for
Yeah.
thought, we don't have to solve it, just a thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Well, oh, sorry. I know, Margaret. Sorry. Yes, you were next. Mhm. Mhm.
It seems to me that it's important to
Mhm.
have a bigger view
Mm.
of what our work entails.
Yeah.
Than going to the same park for a very long time, getting familiar with that park, and then maybe be assigned a different park where you
Yeah.
don't know how to look at that park.
Yeah. So that's the good thing about the tier system because tree rescuers have the opportunity to go to different parks.
But
So if they tree rescue,
Make sure.
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Two different site leaders, become a site leader.
Yeah, so if you're like a site leader now for a specific park and you would like to adopt a new site, you can adopt it as a tree rescuer, do that for like a couple months maybe, and then officially adopt it. So it's really quite fast, honestly. Yeah, so tree rescuers are allowed to like kind of bounce around a little more freely than like a regular site leader. So if you were interested in, adding, a site to your portfolio, you can, tree rescue it, cut all the vines, I'm sure that will go quick if you're super, into it, enthusiastic. And then, you can officially adopt it. And you would already be, so you'd essentially go 1 to 3 within a couple months. Yes. Did that make sense? Did that make sense? Yeah? No? Okay. Yes, Willow. That is a great question.
They go around on boards, they work on. And then Park Authority, we have tree rescuers programs already. And so that was sort of like let's do this in conjunction so that people can come on and they can go cut vines and not. We didn't have to create a site because that requires a permit if you're on the RPA or room to vegetation, which we felt I do anyways.
Yeah.
Learn. Yeah. But yeah, so there's two. So now basically we're doing is taking this tree rescuers and making it into this tier system. So it can funnel people if they want to become an IMA site leader.
But the tree rescue training for the park garden is different than Plano natives.
We use like those videos. We were gonna reinvent the wheel.
Name, I know that causes confusion, but that's pretty true. But it's just a name and it captures the public, so not to deal with that confusion. But we're all working together.
You could just say like PNN, tree rescuers, and FCP like
You're a tree rescuer.
I don't care.
You're a tree rescuer.
And there's trees to work.
Yes.
So,
A lot of trees. Yes.
continuing this,
Yes.
I'm thinking it might be better instead of saying you must have 12 months of such and such, to say you must have these milestones.
Mm-hmm.
And, figure out what those milestones are. At least one in-person visit with an tier 2 or tier 3 trainer
Mm-hmm.
in a season.
Hmm.
So that you can see what's there in that season. I'm just making this up. Or, but give them milestones because some people will have already done a lot of the check boxes.
Yeah.
And then they'll know how can they be surgical about what they need to do next.
Mm.
That will get you people on board much quicker.
Mm.
It allows it for somebody who's already mostly there in some areas and devoid of, training in another area to kind of pick up the slack. And then you will have more of a, it's not standardized because people don't all have the same backgrounds, but it is standardized in terms of the base knowledge you want to have, let alone say to do a leadership. So I guess that's what I would say. Like, I can tell you what I would think based on tree rescuing would be like they're ready for the next car, and then, but if we came up with a checklist like that, and it's not just like they've done it once, but, as IMA leaders, we can kind of get a sense of just that person gets it.
I just wanted to point out that it really is, okay, let's say somebody knows your plans. They know how to rescue as opposed to actually remove. Some people then do herbicide. But one of the things, especially where I am, is you need to know where that line is, where it's this guy's property.
Yeah.
This guy's property. And there's a lot of people that don't know that.
That's true,
They can't, they go somewhere and they don't know how they got there, they can't get back. So for me, it's really critical because I get homeowners coming out to know what we're doing and they think we're lying here.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a skill, a soft skill, maybe, you have to know
Mm-hmm.
before you just go off and start looking at trees.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's, I mean, I just intuitively knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't know that.
Yeah, some people don't, yeah. That is true.
So if I use myself as an example.
Yeah.
Of someone who's kind of got an imbalance, one thing up. I mean, I can turn porcelain very all day long. I can find it in the dead of winter when you can't see it or find what it is, that kind of thing. But I am ignorant about certain, I mean, I know certain shrubs because I keep running into them, but you know, I am not a plant-based type of trained person.
Mhm.
So I would be somewhere in the mix. So I could see if I were going through this, I could be one of those tier 4 trainers for just the tree rescue.
Mm-hmm.
But I would want to also be working up. I'd be like a level 2
Mm-hmm.
for the IMA, and I would add it to what I am training myself to do.
Mhm.
So I would never try to supervise someone else on basic IMA, but I'm all over it for the other. So that's how it could be flexible.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I had that checklist where I knew where I stood with you on all the things that you think are important and health, safety and all those things which are obvious. That would then be the kind of person who would more like me. So.
Any more? Did I get someone? No? Okay, no, that's good feedback. Yeah, we'll talk about it more. Because, you know, it's new, you know, this is new. We're still trying to figure things out. So, you know, we do appreciate the feedback because, IMA and tree rescues, tree rescue is still fairly, new, a couple years, but, we're trying, we just want to make sure we have, retention, because, once you stop at a park, unfortunately it comes back, but, we really want to keep people enthusiastic about the work that they do. So thank you. And, of course, we're all going to meet again to talk about all this stuff. So if anything changes, of course, we'll reach out to you guys. Yeah. Yes. Did anyone in the chat have any questions before we move on? Okay. Perfect. To continue.
But I think it's great. Yeah, don't stop doing this.
No, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Hopefully. We'll see. We're doing a lot of new things this year, so hopefully for the better. Updates to continue. So Earth Sangha has graciously decided to donate some more woodies for us for the fall season for any fall plantings that you're interested in. If you are interested in doing a planting this fall, and they are woodies, trees, shrubs, just let us know. I do have the list, but of course, I'll send out the list via email, stuff like that. So
we also have funding for whatever's they might not cover for the donation and any of which.
yes. Yeah.
Is it only for IMA sites or could it be like in community property or someone's private property? It's just IMA sites?
Through us, but they might have their own system to donate to each. So you want to reach out to them.
Yeah, you can reach out to Michael Ann. Her email's there, but of course I can send out contact information as well.
So that funding may be able to then go towards. Those resources that we may be able to.
They might want to be able to encourage people to think of some trees in that property. We use a lot of trees.
They'll be very expensive.
I'm thinking these homes are lucky for much money. I don't know about this, but yeah.
Yeah. And if you need supplies like fencing, stakes, things like that, just let us know. And then yeah, of course, we can get that stuff to you guys. Yeah, so you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Michael Ann. volunteering Gloria. But if not, just you can just reach out to me. So yeah, if you're interested, just let us know. These are the plants that they sent. So we have, we have smooth alder, river birch, we have common hackberry, black walnut, tulip poplars, American sycamores, black cherries, and swamp white oaks. For some shrubs, or you can call them small trees or big shrubs, we have black chokeberry, smooth hydrangeas, winterberry hollies, wing sumac, smooth sumac, blatternut, no. No.
That always happens during meetings.
No. Wait, what does that say? No, snooze. Snooze. Snooze.
It's going to Forest World Series for minutes. There's no way around it.
I have a suggestion.
Yeah, but I help.
I would love to have somebody train me on baking and things. Oh, okay. I don't know if you guys do a training on those. Because like mine all fell down and then.
No, it's not. It's sort of they last like 1 or 2 weeks. Okay.
Okay, but yeah, I would like
I think the idea is that, like, how many does,
what is, what would be,
if you get plants from or Sanger, they do also like feed fencing and metal stakes and part of their grant, so you can get them there. They actually never the website and to like where last time, let me just tell the online, like you got this. Maybe for the weekend.
Yes.
Hey, Anna. Anna, could we switch to Gloria's laptop?
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay. Connect this one and we have to just pull it here. Oh, take a 5-minute break. There's help yourself himself. He's a restroom. Oh yeah. We'll start at 2:30. 1:35. Okay, let me. So this is the presentation series. I think she has it up. And then I can just read it off my phone. But I'll mine on my phone so I can hear it. That's where's it? Yeah, folder, maybe folder. Well, that's for sure. If you go to the Teams, go to the seminar. I thought that's where we linked it. Oh, wait, maybe not. Is it in our chat? It's in our chat. That's what I thought. Or was it from our meeting chat? But I was thinking, like, the meeting chat. Maybe it's in the regular chat. Regular chat. Yeah, it's like sure that. And I was like, oh, I started seeing it. Yeah, regular chat. Thank you. There it is. Thanks everyone online for your patience. Okay. Oh, thanks. Okay. You know what? I'm sure this.
So you park in the back.
It doesn't change anything.
Not find your feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay. All right, can everyone online hear me okay? All right. Can the chat hear me? Okay, perfect. All right. All right, sorry about the technical difficulties. Sorry, of course. I guess they don't want me working today and they wanted to shut down my computer. So, all right, to continue. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in any of these, just let us know. If you did want like herbaceous stuff, like forbs or anything, sedges, we can also get that. But this is what's being donated. So yeah, just shoot me an email. You can reach out to Michael Land from Ursalonga directly. But yeah, just let us know. And then after you do any plantings, sorry, I think if you do any plantings, just let me know like coordinates or general location. You can take a screenshot of where you decide to plant. That way I can just map it. We've been trying to track plantings. That way we can see if there's any trends, if stuff is more successful, and things like that. Thank you. Oh, all right. You might just have to like put the volume down. Hello, is there still an echo? Okay. Planting methods. All right. So when we choose plants, we want to pick a plant that will thrive in the conditions that you have at your park, right? Right plant, right place. You know, you want to give it the best chance to survive, essentially. So when you're thinking about adding a plant to your site, you want to take everything into consideration. Right? Is this spot in this site, is it going to be sunny, full sun? Is it getting sun all day versus, all right, it's going to be under the canopy and it's being shaded predominantly throughout the day. You want to make sure, you know, you're picking stuff that is shade tolerant or needs that, you know, 6+ hours of full sun to survive. Soil type. For Virginia, you know, our soil is pretty much just going to be clay. So you don't really have to worry too much about, you know, loam or sandy. If you do have like a stream bank, you might have a little more sand. I have been to parks where they do have a little more rocky soil, but it's predominantly going to be more clay. Moisture. Like I said, are you in a wet park? Are you in a riparian area where, you know, you have constant water coming in, either from like stormwater runoff or, you know, a water source within the park? Are you going to be uplands versus lowlands? You just want to think about these things, you know, when you're thinking about what plants to put in the park. Now, you don't really have to worry too much about pH. We're not going to go out and test the soil for you or anything like that. But yeah, you can. So if you really are interested, if you're planting in a spot that like every season stuff is dying back in that specific area, if you do want to go test the pH, you can. It could be too acidic for the plants you're putting there, or it could be too basic. So you can test it. We're just not going to do it. It was more so for like drainage. Like I said, is it in a wet spot that's constantly, you know, have water? Just think about those things. You don't want to put, you know, a upland plant, you know, in a wet zone. Oh, sorry. Okay.
On stage, yeah.
Yes.
One of the next criteria, I'm gonna be interested in what others have to say about this is, considering deer.
Yes.
Most of what we plant.
Yes, it does.
Why plant?
Yeah, so I get, okay, so why plant if it's just gonna be, be taken away by deer browse? That's, we can provide fencing and stuff like that. But you have to remember, you do have hopes that some part of nature will be eating the plants. That's the point. They're native, they're here to support, the ecosystem. So you may have caterpillars, things like that, eating the plants anyways, but the deer are obviously the biggest problem that we're seeing in the park. So like I said, fencing stuff in would be ideal. If you do need those supplies and stuff, just let us know.
I think that's where we settled.
I mean, yeah.
Side our deers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so actually that was kind of what I was wondering is that like this, where I am is it's dry, it's so dry.
Mhm.
I have stopped asking the plants because nothing like seems to live at all. And so I'm just kind of like, I feel like the best I can do is take out the invasive. If you told me I should still keep trying, I will. I just feel like everything I put in dies, it's like can't water.
Yeah. Yeah. So that we are going to go over different challenges and things like that. But yeah, if you are interested in planting, you do have to be mindful. Last year we had a pretty bad drought, right? It was hot and dry all last year. This year we did have a lot more rain, but fortunate for when we did have the plantings in the spring and stuff, it was raining all the time. Now, if you're in a park where you don't have access to water, that does make it challenging. So you may want to consider, like, instead of transplanting, putting down seed. That, of course, is going to take a lot longer than putting something that's already kind of established, right? You just kind of have to, it's like, do you want to bring a jug of water out, every week or even twice a week, depending on how hot it gets?
That's what I
Exactly. Yeah. In the season.
First and frost, we just getting later and.
Yeah. Maybe else is muted. Am I on? Yeah, that's weird. Sorry about the echo. We're just gonna have to pretend it's not happening. Okay, so like I said, I know unfortunately we're planting all these plants, in hopes to, increase the biodiversity and enrich the parklands, things like that. But these native plants do, benefit the ecosystem. Like I said, insects are going to be eating them, pollinators, things like that, small little mammals, deer. Unfortunately, I think the deer are doing the biggest damage. So hopefully we can use, exclosures. I call them enclosures. We're keeping the plants in, keeping the deer out. So hopefully that can deter them a little bit. And then trying deer resistant plants that will work in your site. Of course, we're going to be choosing native stuff only. Let's not put any invasive species in the parks. That is beyond the, why would we do that, right? We're trying to get that stuff out of the park. So, of course, we're only going to supply you with native stuff, but just in case that wasn't obvious, native only. And diversity. We don't only just want one species within the park that we're only planting. Of course, that's beneficial, but having just one species, it can become a monoculture even if it's native. We do want to have biodiversity to support different organisms within the parklands. Just good to have a variety, nice different pops of color too. When things are blooming, it's just more nice on the eyes. Okay, planting methods. All right, so Like I said, you are allowed to just put seed down, just set it and forget it type situation. But if you are interested in transplanting, these are some, general guidelines to help you to have a little more success, right? So you want to choose a location, right? After you choose a location, of course, you want to get rid of the invasive stuff because, you put a plant in, infested area, it's most likely going to die because it's competing for resources. So you want to clear the area of invasive plants if you have any debris, things like that, litter. If you're having people litter in your park, unfortunately, you just have to get the area, as best as possible before you put the plants in the ground, right? If you're working in an area with super compacted soil, just try to loosen it up. That way you're able to get a little more aeration in soil. Of course, if you do that, you may have some upsprouts of invasive stuff that's been dormant in the seed bank. Just make sure you're keeping that area clear. If you need to monitor it, just make sure you're doing that. If you decide to clear the area before you plant, just make sure it stays clear. You can put an enclosure until you're ready to use that soil, things like that. Okay, you're going to want to dig a hole. If you need a shovel, we have shovels. If you prefer to use a trowel, whatever you're fancy, right? Dig a hole. You want the hole to be bigger than the actual pot. So for Songa, usually it's going to be like quart pots or a gallon pot. You want to do 2 to 3 times bigger than that. Same depth, but just bigger width, right? After you do that, I like to do, so I dig the hole and then I'll just put the actual pot in the ground to see if it's deep enough instead of waiting till you actually take the plant out. I just put the pot to see if I've gotten it deep enough within the soil and seeing if my radius is good. After I get it to the proper depth and width, take it out the pot, of course. Don't put the plastic in the ground. Take it out the pot. But you want to make sure that the root flare is level to the soil. So this picture here is a good example of, the depth, right? You don't want to put any plants too deep because if it's too deep, the extra moisture around the root flare can actually cause it to rot and then the plant's going to die. That's what we don't want. If it's too high, it can expose the roots that may be at the root flare, too much air on the roots, or if it's being exposed to people accidentally stepping on it, that sort of thing, damage, the plant can die. Too much stress is not good for a plant, especially when these are saplings. Yeah, so that's a good picture. You can take it out, I can send out this PowerPoint. So not too deep, not too high. You just want it level with the root flare. All right. Of course, after you put it in the ground, use the same soil you dug out of the hole, right? If there's any air gaps, things like that, you want to fill it in with the same dirt. Don't take dirt from a different part of the park. You want to use the soil that was already existing there. Fill in the gaps. If you don't, when it rains, the soil will, it'll sink if there's not enough, and that'll expose the roots. So use the same soil that you dug out. Don't dig and throw the soil. I see some people doing that. Just make a pile next to the hole, right? Don't fling it. Watering after you plant. They need water. Plants need water to survive. It's how they photosynthesize, sunlight, things like that. Water after you transplant. It's a little less in the fall because it's getting cooler, but if you do plant in the spring, you're going to be needing to water a lot more, especially if there's a drought. If it's constantly raining, you don't really have to worry about it, right? Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. Okay. You can mulch. I know some parks actually do get mulch. You can use leaf litter just to put the nutrients back within the soil. It helps also to keep away invasives, but you can mulch just to cycle the nutrients or protect it from invasives coming in. Like I said, if you need any caging or things like that, just ask us. We can provide that for you. That way you can protect, the plants. Planting is more than just digging, right? You need to make sure that the plant matches the conditions that we have, at your specific park, right? You may like a plant, but it may not be suited for the type of environment you have. So just keep that in mind. If you plant something in its non-ideal conditions, it most likely might not survive, or it'll its growth will be super, super slow, right? The first year, it's critical. You know, you need to make sure it's getting enough water, sunlight, things like that. You know, competition from invasives, you want to make sure it's as minimal as possible to help it survive throughout the season, right?
Question.
Yes.
Yeah. So does it matter size of plant, how much more watering, like a tree versus other kinds of plants, and how long would be exposed to it?
So it also just depends on the type of species. Like if you have something that's more prone in a drier environment or drought resistant, it doesn't need to be as watered. Like let's say you're in a wetlands, you're in a wetlands, right? And where like you have a stream that normally like floods kind of the surrounding area, and that's kind of where you plant, and we're going through a drought, so no water's coming whatsoever, you would need to make sure that that's getting. So like I know like sometimes like button bush does way better in like wet environments because that's what it's for, right? If you plant a button bush and then you go through a drought and there's nothing there at your park that used to be there, like historically, you would need to make sure that it's getting water. It's probably gonna die, maybe, especially since it's being so young. So older trees survive a lot better than saplings do. So like even like to like up to like 5 years is honestly kind of, and these plants that were usually from when song are about maybe 2 years old, at least based just on the ones I've seen recently. So it's still in that critical area. You know, it's not a 15-year-old tree we're putting in the park, right? So did I answer your question?
May I weigh in?
Mm-hmm.
A general guideline is that we are responsible for any plant we put in the ground for 1 year. And what that means is you have to be sure that the plant does not go into water stress during that time. If it rains, you're off the hook. If it's dry, get out the bucket. Another guideline is for every inch caliper of a tree, add a year. None of us are going to be planting trees larger than 2 or 3 inch caliper. So none of us should be worried about protecting the tree from drought after 2 or 3 years at most.
Just a rough guideline.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Okay, hey, so I pulled these from Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, stormwater planning, because these are the methods that they've been implementing and finding a lot of success in during stream restoration projects. And I know we've spoken about these before, and I think you've been discussing doing the nucleated planting. I used to say, well, you know, put your shrub and tree together, your ground covers around them. But this is a plan. It's, you know, written out. You can see the measurements that are provided. And it's just a great idea because what it does is that it allows the plants to grow closely together. It reduces the amount of invasives that will grow in that space. However, this is going to be a point of discussion. And then the fencing will go around the grouping of plantings. And so you can see sort of 2 or 3 clusters in this one, but the fence is 40 feet wide and 16 or yeah, wide or long and 15 and 16 wide. So it's quite large. Thank you. This one's a bit, no, this is even larger, 40 feet in length and 20 feet wide. So you can, of course, adapt it to your sites. You can make them smaller. One of the things I think I've heard with the larger fencing areas is that if they're too wide, the deer can just jump in, right? So the fence is also, and the sort of shortness of the fence is meant to keep the deer out as well, to give the plants a better chance to establish when they get to, so that they get above the browse line. So here, yeah, the tree protectors goes around. It's about 10. You can put a post every 5 feet or more if you'd like. They do put mulch on the ground. These plans don't include ground covers, but some of them have included spreading seed down as well as planting. And you have your shrub layer and then your tree layer, and they're really tightly knit. And if you look in a forest, ideally it's replicating what you would see in a forest, where like a chestnut has, like this year, right? They're having a mast year. Tons of seeds are going out. In a forest, what you see is a large tree and then a ton of babies growing underneath it. And the idea, or what they're studying is, and actually just learned this from a woman, Dasha, who's doing her PhD on deadwood coverage in the forest. But that you see that, and it's a strategy to protect the seedlings so that you have more success, right? Same idea here. You have trees closer together, there's more chance of success. So just a strategy, and we hope that you'll use it. This fencing?
No.
It's this fencing. It's not, is that not the same type of fencing? Multiple. So you can build your own. Yeah.
Is the 100 feet of fencing program gonna continue?
That's everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, to my understanding, they were gonna provide fencing and stakes with this donation as well. So if you would like to try like plant nucleation, I think personally, I think that's bang for your buck, in my opinion. But this is a good strategy rather than scatter planting. But you can do both, either one. You can experiment within your own park, see what works better for you. But of course, because if you do try this and nothing lives and you've had success with scatter planting, by all means, you do the method that works, right?
One site if you're online also mentioned the problem issue for his planting, the encroachment. So people just trampling through or mowing it, it's like adjacent to a property line. So these cages might also help at least keep people off your plants, if that's going to enjoy your planting.
And it's an opportunity for education if it's a visible site. Usually these nucleated plantings or one on the border will have a sign like this is a native planting, super clump, and then provide information about restoration. And that's something, we can support you in. So the one question I had mentioned that is a point of discussion is, so Carol Walter over at Lewinsville, I think Carol's online here, has done the nucleated plantings at Lewinsville Park. And, they cleared a ton of porcelainberry. And it was, one of those sort of like mounds of porcelainberry that you see and up in the trees. And they did the nucleated plantings. I believe they spread seed on the ground, but some of the goldenrods have become really, really aggressive. The fireweed has become really aggressive in that area. And then of course, Milo-Minute coming up. But so her concern is that these more aggressive natives have taken over and so densely that the natives aren't getting enough light and to be able to get established. And so it does take weeding. You do have to get into these parcels and pull out these non-preferred plants to allow for the natives that you're trying to establish in these sites to come up and have a chance. So it's not like a put it in and walk away sort of situation, right?
Or sort of like side by side or?
I've seen it. I've seen some site leaders at their site kind of make their own sign for like educational purposes, like Steve Ego McCutcheon. His native garden area is adjacent to a playground. So he's like made a sign like, educational, because kids walk by, it helps them stay out of the area he's planting, but it's also like if a parent is walking by with their kid and they're like, oh, like what's going on? And they happen to love, We haven't like made anything officially, but past site leaders have made their own. I think it could be a good idea, but,
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting on the right kind of material, it's just like that's finished, not.
yeah.
And it has to be, I guess, some artwork. Yes, the spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
We used to have the yard sign that said like native plants, and we were trying to order some more. So that's in the works.
And we're also working through a grant that we received through Virginia Department of Forestry with the National Capital Prism to create a reforestation informational sign, and it'll be like a big cantilever sign for certain reforestation sites throughout. We have multiple sites where I know we want them, but we can also make that bigger sign into like a smaller aluminum one that has holes, and you can just zip tie them onto these fencing so they're more manageable and they can be moved around. I don't know who was first. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe.
I was just gonna say that. My husband had labels for native plants can't be huge, but something like that where we go on the fence. And it's like negligible as far as the expense and how much the materials cost. So if you guys have a design, that's something that I would love to experiment. He wants to start a 3D printing company. And I'm like, so I would love to like, if I give that and be like, hey, the park needs this, like we can implement that.
Interesting. Sarah? No. Yes, yes. Oh, yes. All the signs will have a QR code. Yeah. All the newer signs have the QR code on them.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna say, because when I did the tree rescue, and I have my hands on it, it's QR code, and I do notice. It's likely far away at that point, see the distance, so I think those QR codes would have to be under the spigot, it isn't to generate, if one in a plastic bag, like baggy, I do this sometimes as a product bag, and then like. It up, and then you have a way of getting people to whichever page.
Yeah,
Digital age we live in.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for offering that. Yeah, I think that was business work. Thank you. Okay, so this is just a summary of what Anastasia was sharing about, strategic planting, making sure you're matching the plant to the right site, location and condition. And this is something our Sangha has also offered to come out if you're interested in having them walk through your site to just give you some recommendations. It's also really helpful to find a remnant sort of healthier forest. Like at Laurel Hill, we walked through what used to be like the healthy part of Laurel Hill, and the rest of it's Tree of Heaven and Porcelainberry. So it's like just going in there and being like, this is what we could try to replicate out here, and then picking the species from there using iNaturalist or asking somebody from Ursanga to come out and help you to do that. They're really happy to do that and support the IMA program in that way. And they're fantastic. So again, yeah, grouping your plants together for increased survival, mixing the species for functional, resilience, functionality and resilience, and then prioritizing. Willa, did you have your hand up? Yeah, let you get back. Any questions so far? Okay. Okay, yeah. So why is it important to distinguish between non-native and native species? Misidentification can lead to wasted time spent in the park. If you accidentally misidentify something, you're removing it or even moving it to a different side of the park, you can be wasting your time or spreading an invasive species in the park, right? Right. These are just some tools. I'm sure we all, are familiar with these iNaturalists. I feel like everyone's heard of, right? At maps, you can like report invasive species. I came across Seek. I haven't actually used it yet, so I'm not too sure. But I heard it was okay if you want to give it a go. Of course, you can use different guides, things like that. There's those invasive booklets, like the Mid-Atlantic Invaders book, has a lot of good information in there. And, just like Patricia said, Earth Sangha is happy to help you out in parks, help you ID some stuff, Naturalist as well. You can even check out the local extension. I don't know if there's one in Fairfax County. I've only been to the one in Arlington, but that's also a good resource as well. All right. Understanding different types of plant shapes to help you kind of do a process of elimination when you're trying to differentiate a native versus a non-native plant, right? As we know, plants come in all shapes, sizes, colors, forms, right? And so kind of using these different strategies can kind of help you narrow down what you're looking at. I don't expect you guys to memorize all of this. This is a lot of stuff, but this is kind of just, you know, to help you start thinking, right? When you're looking at a plant, you know, is this leaf I'm looking at, is it more of an oval shape versus like an ovate shape, right? Is it kind of consistent throughout the leaf, or is the bottom a little fatter than the top, or is the top a little fatter than the bottom, right? You know, different shapes. Is it pointy? Is it rounded? Kind of just looking and kind of identifying things that can help you narrow down what you're looking at. So for example, right, let's put this to, we might be missing some slides. We're missing some slides. I tried to fix it. There are examples. Here, let me see if I can. Yeah, fine.
So we have a bunch of different species here that we left here. They're all invasive species. So these were a few that. I'll show you all guys. They look a little thicker. Mine is bigger. It does take away work. Oh, there you go.
Right. So this I think it's actually on one of those things, but here is an example of how to kind of start gauging what you're looking at, right? One is native and one is invasive. All right, so we can kind of start looking at the different characteristics, right? This one on my right, is a little more shiny. It is a little lobed, right? It does have serrated edges. The one on the left is a little less shiny. It's a little more dull looking, right? That leaf has way more lobe definitions than the one on the right-hand side. No, it might still be this one. Does anyone know what these are? Does anyone know which one is which?
That's it, red.
Up here. This one is red? Oh, right. This one is, you guys say this one is red. Mix. Mix. Well, yes, they're technically both, they're both mulberry. One is red and one is white, right? So this is, example, you're out in the woods, right? You're like, oh, it's mulberry, but you make it confused, which is which, right? So, oops, I went too far. Oh, wait, what happened? What happened? Hold on. Where'd it go? Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so the one on the left, my left, no, your left, was a white mulberry. So, yeah, no, not like that. Yeah, so the one on the left was white mulberry. That's the non-native mulberry. That's the invasive one. The one on your right is the red mulberry. So looking at these different things, red mulberry usually has a less shiny leaf. It's more dull, and it's usually going to have deeper lobe edges or sides, right? Compared to the white mulberry. The white mulberry's lobes will never get as deep as the red one. And yeah, so, and then you can also look at the bottom, right? The bottom's got that funky little shape, like, it kind of curves like that. And if you also look at the underneath, it's kind of hard to tell in the picture. But if you can use your senses, right? You're using your eyes, you can use your hands. You can touch it. It's a little more like hairy versus a little more smoother. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the bottom of the leaf of the white mulberry, which is the non-native, is going to be smoother compared to the red mulberry, which has a little, oh, the shape. Oh, yeah. So, the bases of the leaves, right? So you can have an equilateral base where it's got those rounds, but one side's a little deeper than the other. So it kind of looks like a little funky like that. It can be even round, and then sometimes it's heart shaped, upside down heart, versus like trunnicate. I don't know if I'm saying that trunnicate. It's more of a triangular rounded base, right? So if you look at the mulberry, it's kind of got more of like that heart shape versus like equilateral. If you've never seen a mulberry, you might not even know what it looks like, period. But just, those are some ways that you can kind of like narrow down what you're looking at. So margins or edges, is it a smooth edge? Does it have teeth or serrations? Is it lobed or incised? Right? Wavy could be another one where it's frilly, kind of like wisteria, right? And then, like I said, back to the bases. Is the base pointy? Is it rounded? Does it have a heart shape to it? These are things you can kind of help you gauge. So another example, what are we looking at, right? Native versus an invasive plant. Here's another example of how you can kind of look at the different characteristics of the leaves, even when they look very similar, right? Sorry if the picture's a little blurry. I tried to get the best high quality picture I could.
So this is floating.
Any guesses? Okay. Okay, so tree of heaven left, walnut right? Other way around? Yeah, so I've heard a little mix, but yeah, no, good idea. Like I hear people talking about opposite leaves versus alternate. They're looking at the margins, right? So I think for tree of heaven, I think the biggest key would be the edges, right? You're looking for that tooth. So the one on the left was tree of heaven, and the one on the right was black walnut. So the black walnut won't have that little tooth, or it's kind of like two little teeth. Here, let me show. I can stand up there. But it's gonna have little tiny teeth throughout the whole plant, or the whole piece, rather than tree of heaven, it's just gonna be here at the base. Yes.
Notice also that the black walnut is opposite,
Yes.
but the ailanthus is actually alternate.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yep.
close to being opposite, but they're not.
Yeah. So good point. Alternate versus opposite. Alternate is on the stem, which is this part, right? The leaves start at different points on the stem, so they're staggered essentially.
Versus on down, right? Yeah.
Versus the black walnut, they're going to be directly across from each other on the stem, right? So that could be another tool you look at to help you kind of distinguish what you're looking at, right? You can also use other key identifying things. If you're getting stumped on the leaf, you can look around. Do you see any flowers? Do you see any fruit? You can look at the bark and use those other key features. Smell sometimes. Yeah, the Atlantis or tree of heaven, it does kind of smell like a weird peanut butter, right? If you pull the leaves off, you break them up, you sniff them, smells like peanut butter, right? You don't always have to use just the leaf to help you distinguish, right?
Yeah, so it's, yeah, popcorn kind of. Not movie theater butter popcorn. Right, again, here's a better picture. And then also, like I said, you can look at, see if you see any fruit. The tree of heaven, the leaves are like maple seeds. They're kind of that papery samara, I believe is the word. You can look for that if you're out in the field. So things like that, the bark, like I said. So if you do get stumped on identifying the leaf, using these characteristics, you can use other stuff that you see on that plant, right?
Look for the spotted lantern.
That too. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. It's gotten so bad. And just to go back, this is we kind of touched on this a little bit. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Work myself. Compound leaves. Although it looks like a bunch of leaves, right? It's technically still one leaf. All those little leaves you're looking are they're called leaflets. But that whole thing would technically be considered one leaf. Fun fact. Versus simple leaf, which is just one leaf. Yeah.
Could ever tell leaflet versus leaf, right? So like at the connection, if it's got a swelling, that's the end of the leaf. So if there's lots of them,
yes,
that don't have swellings, then those are leaflets.
Yes. No, they're called like I think I have a picture here of like the different parts of the leaf. The petiole, or maybe I guess you can call it the bud, like also like the bud where the stem meets like the main trunk, bud, auxiliary bud or something. Let me go back. Did I miss something? Needles. I know we don't, at least I don't see too many conifers within our parks. But if you do have some conifers, you can kind of use that to help you distinguish what native you're looking at. Owl-shaped, scale-like needles. Yeah. Bundle needles. Yep. Parts of leaf, if you're interested, just a little science in there. You have the base, the veins, the margins, the apex. Like we were talking about earlier, opposite versus alternate. The leaves are directly across each other versus staggered. Fun fact, I don't know how to say this, so I just say world. World leaves. This may throw you off a little bit, but buttonbush does tend to have world leaves. So instead of 2 at the top, it may have like 3 or 4, kind of like in a whirl, going like this, which is pretty cool. You can actually use that as a tool to distinguish buttonbush between like a persimmon, right? Just there you go. And just another example, like even if you're looking at native versus native, right? You're looking at opposite versus alternate, and like that world leaf on button bushes. That's usually what I look for if I'm not sure if I'm looking at like a persimmon. So yeah. All right, timing. Sorry, can you guys read that? I know it's kind of zoomed out. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I mean, kind of just repeating kind of what we talked about a little earlier. I'm going to make sure if you are going to plant, you want to prepare your site. Fall is good because things are slowing down. Things are going to start going into dormancy. This allows them to kind of focus on root growth rather than foliage growth, like in the spring. Yeah. All right. Challenges. I know we kind of talked about some of these a little bit earlier, but these are, some of the things we come across when we're working out in the field. Invasives. That's, the number one thing we're going to come across, of course, as the invasive management area program, right? It's going to it's going to require persistence, right? I wish we can just work in a site and then it's gone forever. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And, most of the time, unfortunately. But if we clear a site, we want to make sure we're going back just to make sure nothing new is coming in and to maintain what we've already taken out, right?
That's the biggest. People. Now, that's whenever I met them. It'll be a few years.
Not enough. Yeah. Yeah, deer browse, eating everything, climate change. We kind of slowly talked about that briefly, like having a drought versus having a rainy season, right? Things are blooming earlier, like we had wavy leaf go to seed a lot earlier in the season, just because it was warm and wet a lot more than we anticipated, right? These things can affect the invasive species that we're trying to manage. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These, I think we believe. Yeah, things have. Solid and bark a lot for years. Things, I've jumped in the leaf pile.
I've seen them, yeah.
Plus then they get invasives in there, which is a total cost. So I have to run fill it. And then with the contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, yeah, I walked through the park. Yeah, and a lot of times the leaf litter from like urban or like houses and stuff like that, they usually, not always, like some people pay to get like chemical fertilizers put into the ground to help support their trees, that those chemicals are then being reintroduced. And sometimes the concentration, like some people get like random stuff that's not like nitrogen or phosphorus and things like that. Like some people get like I'm not gonna go into it. But like those chemical fertilizers are then like recycled and back into the park where they're not normally, right? So that's another issue with like dumping. So if you do like leaf mulch, make sure you're hopefully it's coming from the actual tree, some people reuse it, but yeah, if you have like a problem with dumping from like neighboring properties, like their leaf litter, even branches and stuff, just be mindful of that. You may think you can use it to like preserve like the moisture in the soil, but just a thought, like if you think it could have those chemical fertilizers in it, just be mindful. So try to use stuff that's only coming from the park, right? That's non-invasive, right? I think it was Sarah.
It has not happened, right? I mean, it's by posting photos, scouting out, like saying, look at the Eco Project, amazing, we can get some volunteers joining us, we get service on, we can contribute to the neighborhood, like there's all these things, big photos, videos. We're constantly getting tips for pollinator pathways and for meeting up related plants and all of this, for you will come out to your house for free and give them consultations about what they're doing and all that. There it is.
Yeah.
We get people from all over the county, including Loudon, Princeton, Victoria, DC, Maryland, and everything.
And just, wow.
Yeah, we have delegates, we have,
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. They might like, when it's doing sometime, or like 15 hours, it's nothing.
So I'm a little on the shy side, but now anybody walks by, I tell them what I'm doing. I wait for them to ask me.
They say, thank you for your service.
They should thank you, than half the time.
Okay, let's do Willow first, then Bev, and then
Well,
yes.
I started
landscaping company said this was good for the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, well.
Misinformation, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I have my one neighbors educating other neighbors now. We don't seem to have that problem anymore, but I was chased after a landscape company down the road. I did because I saw it, I know, I said, oh, no, we didn't know, whatever. So now, and also we have one neighbor that watches cars come in. But having said that, I have a problem with dumpster. We had a dumpster 15 minutes into my workday. I think I told you
Yeah,
that.
people were dumping.
Somebody comes up to the pickup truck and puts 6 bags in the dumpster. I'll say, okay, and we have dumpsters for very valuable. You know, we don't pick up that much, we refilling that. And the volunteer said, oh, I thought that was someone, whatever, but I couldn't believe that they did that. It was probably someone, I don't know, nearby, or whatever.
Because they have to pay when they go to the dump.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're gonna get signs for the dumpster now.
Yeah.
Again, because we used to have signs in the county in the dumpster, and I think that helped. So there's always somebody ready to.
You guys actually gave a sign to hear why there's no work there.
Yeah.
They couldn't put it up.
Oh, wow. Yeah. If you, yeah. 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 Any?
Yeah, one of the things said is next to about 1,000 homes, big older civic association. And I thought it's the trail that's kind of like a freeway. And so of course people are gonna be all excited. I put it up, but when I got the, the QR code, I did start noticing people, and people would come by. And when I advertise it, I make sure to do widely. So I, volunteer for a fax on my own website or whatever. And I do not rely on the neighborhood itself. But over time, what I've noticed is that more and more people, like a few at a time. And then I went to one of their like that neighborhood has a community day, the Pacific Association Community Day. And then one of the parks was not attached to the stream. It was just a little park. And everyone loves that park. And like, I've never been back to this park because it's so surrounded by invasives. Long story short, out of that came a conversation with the Civic Association Board, finding me and getting traction. So I think some of it is repeat, and it will, if you're waiting for like nirvana, it's not going to happen. But if you just keep doing it because you're going to keep doing it, I just keep putting that word out. I think over time we're going to hit at some point. Just like with recycling. When I was a kid, nobody recycled. Now everybody recycles. I really honestly believe it's a critical mass question. You better get the kids. Indoctrinate them.
Yes.
Dump at the bill in the problem. Contractors hired by the county or the park authority are also a problem because we have watched the guy who comes in with his equipment to mow the lawn miss his turn and dig huge gashes in the parkland, not care about it all, not even say sorry and drive off. And also, they had beautiful trees near the entrance to Deer Lake Park. And those trees growing as trees do, and their roots growing as they do, making the asphalt path buckle. Well, a contracting firm was hired to repave. And instead of stopping where the roots were that support the trees at the entrance to the park, they cut the roots of these trees. I mean, you all know how terrible that is to cut major roots like that, relatively close to the base of the tree, and put in a layer of asphalt this high over those. Well, these are people hired by the county. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it just sickens me to see that.
I have a question to you. Does the county like those kinds of crews have like mowing crews have any kind of in-service once a year on the invasive issue and how to be good mowers in the context of preventing.
That is a great question.
Maybe they ought to have a tiered system. for both.
Yeah, right.
And sort of like my assistance for human natural resources is trying to bring the area crews, sort of like the grounds crews on board with, hey, if you're working on a trail and you're trying to prune things back, like don't drive into the woods and help detach a forest and don't do this sort of rough maintenance stuff like, and just also bring them on to like, hey, these are the invasives that instead of pruning them back, you could cut them or yank them out instead. But so we've reached out to area managers in the past, say, hey, we're gonna do some training on how to use herbicide, if you want to get, your staff trained or, what we do as natural resource grants. I know, for instance, John Burke, almost annually will present to all staff, like all SCPA. And that includes the park operations on what we do, what we're trying to do as the IMA program and other parts of our branch. So, and that aspect we're trying to bring in, but I don't think it trickles down, and so then it's the people on the ground that sometimes cause the issues. And so that's why we held trainings, but
I know somebody holds conferences for landscapers.
yes. It'd be great if it was, I can't make that. Yeah.
But honestly, we've run into it so many times, how inter-county departmental communication doesn't work. So part of the dumping thing, like what we found is that the county almost doesn't care or is unwilling to confront people who dump in the park. They just don't want to do it. You can report it. It happens all the time. The county doesn't want to confront it.
So
It's
one
just
of,
a reality.
it's some reality too with like not, for instance, wanting to enforce an ordinance of like dumping or ordinance of like not letting your invasive come onto parkland because we don't want to be looked at as the bad guy. We want residents to like the park authority. So then it hits us hard when we're trying to.
We can't be bad guys because we confront them.
But we
They don't.
These guys are volunteers to be. Like you, so we want to be supportive of you and that.
You should get the HOAs to do it. They're crazy about guys.
Public works, I mean, because I do look at things a lot with streets, right? Because a lot of the litters is, yeah, I mean, like in 1 hour down in Backward Run, Green Valley, we pulled up and the base, like construction related to something. They even had a spot where they would back up their truck and they would create it. So I think the only solution was a solution. They're trying to, they were trying to consolidate all the public works, how the project budget, but it's so unpopular. Happened, that was partly, part of that would solve that. And so
Greg said for his park, which is Royal Lake, he does also do some stuff at like Rabbit Branch and Crooked Creek. But he said his biggest problem is encroachment from the neighborhood. People like to go off trail and stomp on the new plantings, or they like to dump as well. Oh, he even said, I do actually remember this. Some people in the neighborhood built a fort. They've also built a zip line and they built campfires in his park. So that's kind of like stuff he's dealing with at his park, which is really unfortunate. And we've been trying to help him with that. Yeah, he said, I wish that deer and the harsh weather were his only concerns in the park. So yeah, that's pretty tough. He's primarily at Royal Lake, but like he does work at Rabbit Branch and Crooked Creek, which are like offshoots.
So what is this specific process for illegal activities in the park?
So we report it to the area managers.
We report it to you.
And we let the area manager know.
Check it out.
And then they do their thing, which I don't know what that is because it doesn't really help.
letters, and sometimes we do get a good response, like, oh, I didn't know you can do that. That was just leaves a good back and forth. So some people do respond. I think we've gotten rid of site leaders because they were encroaching in the parks. They didn't know what they were doing was harmful, and the area manager reached out, told them about the IMA program, and then they started volunteering and basically undoing that and then some, right, helping the park get better. But yeah, the problem is we don't have enforcement. We don't have an enforcement team. And I think it was a few years ago, I think park operations tried to apply for funding to get like our own park rangers to help us, especially with like encroachment and dumping and all these issues in the park. But that didn't get approved. So I'm not sure if they've applied ever since. That would be the solution, right? Getting someone to actually confront the people and enforce the dumping rules and like that.
Yeah. So we're not gonna have time to do this, and honestly, we've been having good conversation with this group, so we're not gonna do breakout groups, but we're just gonna kind of be talking amongst ourselves and kind of discussing different tricks, tips that have helped us with some of these different topics, things like where we succeeded versus where we failed at, and if we can kind of like share our experiences amongst each other. So we're kind of going to be talking about recreational parks, like parks that have like playgrounds, athletic fields, things like that, versus more natural areas. Like what do you find to be your biggest challenge there, or your greatest success? Invasive species management. So what we found that works versus what doesn't work, that sort of stuff. Different techniques for plantings. If we're having trouble getting plants to survive, that aren't just being killed by like deer browse, but maybe like other conditions or other factors that might be in play, and then also how we can engage the community a little bit better. If you're a site leader who isn't really open or likes the idea of like working with groups, but you would like to try, this could be like a good opportunity to like hear from the other site leaders, like what they've done, what works for them versus what doesn't work. I know sometimes working with groups can be hard, but if we kind of just share ideas, things like that, and just get to know each other more a little bit better, and hear what works at a similar site if you have one, right? All right. So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but like challenges, right? Like we have people going off trail. Like if you do have a maintained trail at your site, they're walking off trail, that can kind of, one, spread the seed of the invasive stuff, right? We don't like that because now it could spread into a possibly healthier part of the park, right? We don't like that. Going off trail also can like compact the soil. That's not good because the soil needs air, right? The roots need to be able to get air through the soil when it rains and stuff like that. So kind of just talking about what you found helps you guys, if you've done anything and you found success. I know I've talked to some site leaders. They implemented caging, but also they've also tried to put more spikier native stuff in their park on like social trails, like hollies, stuff to kind of deter people from like going off trail. So that's like one strategy I know as site leaders. Devil's walking stick, right? Get people to like I don't want to go through that bramble, right? Greensbriar. Have you guys like tried any of these things or implemented? I know we kind of talk about using more signage, that sort of stuff. Has anyone done anything we haven't really talked about or would like to like see if something might work? Oh. With signs. That could work, yeah. Yeah, I mean they are found in the area. Don't go off trail. I just saw a copperhead. Yeah. Yes. I almost got stuck there. Oh. Oh, gee.
like, can you get your volunteers to dump stuff out?
Anyone else have an idea that they haven't necessarily tried but are interested in trying? Oh. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Never when I'm wearing my undershirt, everyone's around, usually like, skirt, or something, and, those times people got very, very angry with me. They weren't necessarily from the direct neighborhood, they were on their dog, they'll run, bark, and so, that, it's, I've been having a lot of running them forever, so, you have any tips on that? That's not a problem with dogs.
It scares me the most.
What do you do? I mean, what's the?
When I get up the nerve, which is not every time, I just say, park policy, I'm not being mean, dogs on leash.
And it's a state law, right?
State law.
You have to leash your, yeah, unless it's like a obviously like designated dog park, like in an enclosed area, they have to be like on leash. It's state law and park policy.
Feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Private people, it's always a difficult thing.
yeah, because I mean some people are crazy.
How I do it, I guess, and then if they get my friends, I can tell, I have told them, yeah, I think it's not allowed in this park. Who are you, the bulldozer, like. Yeah, and so there's a difference called authority. That is, instead of being like an enforcer, you stand next to the person and it's more like it's less confrontational, but I can send materials about that, but it's an approach that people use like in leave no trace and other situations where you're trying to educate people, but you want them not to become defensive.
Yeah.
It's like more like you would approach and stand next to them and be like, like if it's a big dog, I can kind of be like, well, I love dogs too, like you do it in a less like confrontational way, like if you have scared of dog, and you realize that it can impact, neighbors, like animal plants, whatever, couple get sprayed by your dog, that you're pretty sure your dog is going to have that attention, you don't want your dog doing, damage, et cetera, and so it's like a less confrontational way of approaching the person. That often it just goes by having like a conversation side by side. That sounds like a good idea. Conversation, I can share materials because it's a push call authority of the resource. So that you're not enforcing, you don't have the authority of a park ranger, but you are using the authority of like trying to help them understand how they could do something better for nature and the environment. Yeah, it's just gently. Yeah, and it's not policy as well. It is not confrontational and it's not like just, they don't get on defensive because they're like, they might, but we try to be more defensive. Thank you. So I think share that.
Whitney?
So my dog's been mauled a couple times by other dogs who are off leash.
Yeah.
Same dog both times.
Oh, geez.
So when we're walking the dog, I always have to say that other.
Most people don't have a good callback. Yeah.
So. And what somebody just said is a joke, great idea, and if you're working in IMA side, I just say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm allergic and terrified of dogs. Can you put that back on? And just put it on yourself, and people usually come about it. Yeah, at least I can walk like once.
In the chat, Greg said also with the idea of putting up large dead branches, kind of to like keep them out, also planting thorny plants, and then also kind of using poison ivy as a deterrent, which is kind of funny, use the natives to keep people out. I think that's funny. And yeah, so all good strategies. I like the poison ivy idea. I'm gonna start telling people, move the poison ivy over here. Keep them out. Just some more stuff, management strategies, like, certain parks or, I've seen, sometimes we like to prioritize a specific species. Even with like we have EDRR, prioritizing species that don't necessarily have a foothold in the park yet and aren't necessarily at infestation. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking too much today. Getting tongue tied. But making that a priority versus other ones. Do you guys have a specific plant you like to prioritize within a specific season? Like I know in the spring, we have like lesser celandine we like to really, prioritize versus like later in the season, where you just want to focus on this one. Or do you like to do like a kind of just tackle everything, here type situation? Yes.
Weekend, all the burning bush, right?
Bright red, yeah, I remember.
But we've taken out, say, 60. So some were kind of big, but a lot of them were like this.
Yeah, small.
And you cannot really pick those out.
Mhm.
Because where I am, they're not like in the past yet. But that's stuff, and that really worked well because in the dead of winter, every one of those showed up. People that were walking started asking me, who's putting all these things on stuff? And I could tell them what they were.
Okay, good.
They go, but I have those in my yard and I was told you were good.
You were told wrong. Mm-hmm. John, did you still have
Somebody
something?
had a calendar by month that had the optimum
Mhm.
plants to attack in that month.
Yes.
You guys could send that out occasionally, that would be.
Yeah. Like a monthly reminder, like, hey, this is gonna be an ideal time to tackle this. Before it hope, with climate change, it may shift a little. Stuff may see earlier or later. Oh, yeah.
Calendar like thing, that would be useful.
Whitney?
Just like
Oh, okay.
level tier.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, the other thing I was gonna ask is, about on the tree rescuing, I try, like, in general, I figure you want to start with a remnant and protect that best by leaving that area and tackling working outwards from there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a question, which is like when you're working the tree rescue.
Yeah.
Fire infested area.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way of tackling like on here?
So for me personally, what I do in terms of like invasive management, like if I go out into the field, herbicide or not, I like to start from one end and work my way to another end and kind of just map or, take record of like where I've been, right? Instead of kind of just like, kind of just zigzag my way through. Sometimes you may have to do that. But I like not all of them. But if there's a trail, you can use like a trail as like a reference point, or even like landscapes. Like some parks have like those little bridges. There could be like a beautiful native tree. Like let's say there's like a dogwood at this part, and you can kind of use that as a reference point, right? I've worked from this section to this section, going through depending on like my mood, or like what I'm there to do. If I'm kind of doing like a general thing, I'll kind of honestly, I just kind of take out any invasive I come across. That's just me personally. If I'm there for a specific reason, like when I helped Bev with the burning bush, right? I was there only specifically for the burning bush. I just focused one end to the other, right? Instead of kind of like jumping around. Fortunately, she did help label and everything was bright red, right? So I started from one section, make sure I kind of canvassed, make sure I kind of got everything that I could see, with my eye without going too far off trail. Because mind you, I don't want to be spreading other stuff. If you do have to go deeper into your site, just making sure you're cleaning your boots, right? Making sure you're not spreading seed. You should be doing that anyways when you leave the park, right? So just kind of getting an idea, like, are you kind of just trying to clear an area altogether, or are you, targeting one specific species? So I fortunately have the benefit of using herbicide on everything, unlike you guys. So sometimes I'll just, take everything out. But sometimes, yeah, I'll just focus on one specific thing. So that's what I like to do. It really just depends on also what the situation is looking like, right? If we're only spot treating, are we out? Are we getting kicked out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be presenting to the basic plan. Excited. And it's gonna be about the use of volunteers using herbicide. And because we're the first, I think, municipality who's started that, training volunteers. So I wanted to get your input. And I've heard just a couple people say, oh my gosh, it's so great. Thanks. Some great photos. So this is what it's supposed to look like as a dead and working. So I just want to get your feedback so I can share perhaps some anecdotes and then I was useful. You might ask David Williams to talk about it. Oh, yeah, because he's the one that has the photos and he's an expert in environmental. So he knows fully what level, he knows. And that today he came out and was part of the session. He service that today. And he thanked him for being possible because so.
Yeah, and he actually got to learn how your herbicide, that it was the spraying and everything was in a safe, thoughtful, lost their sponge method. So you got to see what's up.
But so 2 years ago is when he came to the National Public Lands Day event and we asked to be able to use herbicide. And then when obviously we had to make it possible for us to be trained in it. So I'm thankful, very thankful. I think the plans that we have barberry and multicolor rose, and leather we can look at. It's just a lot easier than trying to rest some of the things. Yeah, you can cover more, you're not disturbing the ground. In a disturbing the ground thing, especially when you realize that it's not just something that is still grass. I just think that, it works.
The application of the spring supposedly least effective. I'm just curious whether anybody, I only saw one plant that resprouted on me, and that was barberry. Somewhere in like April.
It's great. I mean, you treated in April. I didn't treat it until.
So barberry is going, and then when you cut barberry and you put it to the side, it starts to re-root into the ground too. So it's pretty tenacious.
On stabbing, get it off the ground a little and possible.
But in terms of the herbicide, barberry, and there's some large multiflora rows, even in the summer, that I cut high, for whatever reason, couldn't get any lower. It's starting to resprout. Those are the only two plants that I've seen.
When you treated in the spring.
Spring through the summer. How many? So everything works except for barberry. I saw. How many people have you trained? Bittersweet, multiflora rows.
If you're holding up.
If anybody has experience with wisteria, I can hear that.
There's really people who get the rest of six of our, let's like that.
These are 36 volunteers in the purgatory. Maybe we'll stay another for tree restoration. What day is that? October 25th?
Yeah.
But you feel the other sort of softer benefits of your rollout is the public education.
Yeah.
The use of herbicides, the safe aspects of it, the benefit, cost benefit, or whatever you want to talk about, that it kind of demystifies it and makes it less of a scary thing, I think, for the public, because we can talk about Now we are using it with now we've been training, it's been safe, no detail into the whole, how it's been passed into all of our analysis to do it. So it's just the fact that we're using it is an educational form.
Yes, we're using it to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
How many people have come back for more?
We have, I mean, it just depends on the person, right? Well, we're gonna wrap up soon because we're gonna get kicked out. But some people, just now started using it as it gets colder. John's been using it all since March, essentially. He is out there almost every day, honestly. So, it just depends on the person. Yeah.
That's for around the database. I had to go back and read every.
Yeah, he's out there. He's killing stuff. Every week he's like, I need more herbicide. I'm like, go ahead. Okay, we did have someone share their thought, and then I guess we can go. Sorry we didn't get through the whole thing. But they like to remove the most invasive seed sources first, right? So they like to remove the seed if they're not able to, I'm assuming, remove the entirety of the plant. That is a good strategy. If you can't remove everything all at once and it is in seed, just get to the seed because we want to make sure that the seed is not replenishing in the seed bank, or else it's just going to keep popping up, right? As soon as it gets the chance, it'll keep popping up. And then monitoring is a big thing. And yeah. Yeah. So you guys can we only it was the two other things, just like planting strategies, and then like youth engagement or community engagement. If you guys did want to connect like within yourselves, by all means exchange information. I think you all pretty much know each other, right? There's a group. Yes.
Contact Margaret Fisher.
Hopefully you guys learned something. I tried. Okay. All right. Thank you guys for online.